As consumers, we are bombarded by it at every turn, like the Incredible Hulk being bombarded by gamma rays. But what makes some media endure, while others are banished to the forgotten black hole of obscurity, never to be heard from again? Who or what decides this? Hetero life mates Steve and Yahel want to know, and they want to know now. This is Obscurity Now. So, the premiere episode of Learning the Ropes came out September 16th, 1988. In this specific episode that we're watching, it's called Unmasking the Masked Maniac. And the synopsis is as follows. For some reason, there was no synopsis on IMDb. There's not a lot of information about this show out there. If you look at the IMDb and the wiki, there's a lot of contradicting sort of information. The IMDb shows it as only having 13 episodes, but if you go to the wiki, it's clear that there were 26 episodes. But basically, did you want to summarize the synopsis for the episode in your own words?
Yeah, sure. So the first episode is basically we're just introduced to the family. Mm-hmm. We're in the Masked Maniac's family. And basically his attempts to keep the fact that he moonlights as a professional wrestler a secret. Mm-hmm. So that's really kind of basically it. It's really serves more of an introduction to the characters and just how some people find out that he's a wrestler. And
the world of wrestling, I would say, for sure. But no, that's a good synopsis. The director of this episode, actually, there's a lot of TV veterans involved with Learning the Ropes here. And the director is Noam Pitlick, which is just a funny last name. He worked on Wings.
That sounds like a BioShock character.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I'm sure he was alive when BioShock was going on, because, BioShock's based on real history. Mm-hmm. So, Noam Pitlick, he directed episodes of Wings, Mr. Belvedere, and Taxi. And then we've got two writers here. One, Gary Ferrer. He worked on the Dennis the Menace cartoon. Did you ever watch that Dennis the Menace cartoon back in the 80s?
Yeah, I wasn't a fan.
What?
But yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think Dennis the Menace is kind of stupid.
I mean, it's just dated.
The original show, the movies, the cartoon, the people that enjoyed it, Steve.
Wow.
I don't think too much of them either.
All right. All right. Yahel's email is smartmark69 all right.
That probably is somebody's email.
You're right. I know. He also worked on previously covered by us, Small Wonder. And I can make a lot of comparisons of this show to Small Wonder as we proceed forward. And also, Welcome Back, Kotter. That's all stuff that he's written. And then we have Neil Rosen, who has worked on The Munsters. Though it's called The Munsters Today. So it was like a reboot or something. The Facts of Life. And once again, Welcome Back, Kotter. And we can't forget about the creator, Ed Self, a guy who's always had a strong sense of self about him. And he basically worked on a lot of TV movies like back in the 80s. Sarah Plain and Tall, The Winter's End, which who knew Sarah Plain and Tall had like such a crazy action sequel to it.
Who knew?
Yeah. And then I guess some sort of spy TV movie called Spies, Lies, and Naked Thighs, and The Yearling. So basically just a lot of TV movies. And as we previously said, this was a Canadian produced, and the name of the production company, for anyone who cares, is Cineplex Odeon, which is kind of cool sounding, but
really rolls right off the tongue.
Really, really. So, who are some of the thespians that performed in Learning the Ropes?
So for the cast, we've got Lyle Alzado who we've already discussed. He plays Robert Randall and the Masked Maniac. However, technically speaking, when the Masked Maniac is shown wrestling, that is not Lyle. Although Lyle is a big dude, he's a former football player, still in great shape, very muscular guy, but he's not a trained wrestler. No. So under the hood, the Masked Maniac is Steve Williams, aka Dr. Death, Steve Williams, who passed away a number of years ago, but he was a wrestler who he had some runs here in the States, but he had his most successful work in New Japan. Jim Ross loves Dr. Death Steve Williams and will not shut the fuck up about him if you get him started.
Does he talk about him a lot on his podcast or something?
Yeah. I mean, he's the one that brought him into like Monday Night Raw into WWF during the Attitude Era.
And what is the name of that? It's called Grillin' JR, right?
Yeah, Grillin' JR.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't Steve Williams' maybe it was his WWE run or career altogether was kind of cut short because of that Brawl for It All? Like,
kind of, yeah. So Brawl for All was, man, we're really getting sidetracked here, but yeah, Brawl for All was a tournament, like a boxing tournament, although you could also use grappling,
right,
that WWE had during Monday Night Raw, but it was like actually legitimate.
Yeah, it was,
unlike the rest of the matches.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was a shoot. The guys were really boxing, really going after each other. They had a point system, and it was initially created as a vehicle to have because they assumed Dr. Death would win it all because he has a legitimate background in boxing and MMA and all this other stuff. And instead he lost like his very first match, he got knocked out from what I remember. And instead, like, Bart Gunn, the charisma vacuum, Bart Gunn ended up winning it. And then Bart Gunn got beat up legitimately again in another shoot fight that they did at WrestleMania between Bart Gunn and Butterbean.
Yep. So basically,
terrible idea.
Brawl for All like killed a bunch of guys' careers, more or less.
Yeah, because a bunch of guys got injured,
Right.
legitimately injured during it. So like they couldn't wrestle.
Way to go, Vince!
But
way to go.
Yeah, they did pay the guys. It was voluntary to do it, and the guys that did do it did get paid more to do it. So that there was like a financial incentive for them to do it. But yeah, kind of weird. And then like, it's so dumb because if you're a fan, especially a casual fan, yeah, they're telling you that this is real, but then it's like, why would you believe it? They tell you the whole show is, quote unquote
Right.
real, and then it also creates this weird situation of like, oh yeah, this one part of our show, the next 10 minutes are real, the rest of it's fake. Like, so dumb.
Yeah, I agree.
Anyways, Lyle Elzado had 31 acting credits, but again, like nothing major that I saw.
Anything that sounds like fun or weird?
I mean, not really. He does play a character called Bulk in something called Neon City. So I thought
Neon
that was
City.
funny.
That sounds awesome. But anyway.
Yeah, actually, let me read the description to Neon City. It's a Mad Max clone set in the not too distant future about a group of people trying to escape to a safe haven called Neon City after a solar disaster.
I think I've seen it actually, but we'll add it to the list maybe. We'll see.
All right. Anyways, playing his son Mark is Yannick Bisson. Anyways, he's still acting pretty regularly. Most recently, he's played Detective Murdoch in the show called Murdoch Mysteries. I've never heard of this show,
Me
Steve.
either.
It's been running since 2008 to 2023. There are 260 episodes.
Maybe it's like a Canadian thing.
Yeah, it's got to be. But 260 episodes. Yannick Bisson is going strong. And before that, he was in a podcast series for the show back in 2020. So I guess the podcast was so important. The show did so well, it got turned into like a podcast.
Probably an audio drama, I would imagine. Maybe.
Well, I mean, it's definitely a TV show now since 2008, but he was also in something called The Adventures of Napkin Man.
Okay.
60 episodes of Napkin Man exist. And he plays the Napkin Man in that.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
So, yeah, anyways, he's got a bunch of other ones, such as the great film Another Wolf Cop, where he plays someone named Swallow.
Oh, you've never seen Wolf Cop? Oh, no. Wolf Cop is great. You've got to check it out.
Well, he was also, because we've covered The Pretender. So he was also in something called The Pretender 2001. I guess it's like a movie.
Oh.
That came out in 2001 with The Pretender. I actually would not mind revisiting The Pretender.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, he's in that. But yeah, he's got like some kind of interesting stuff in his resume for sure. So he's been quite successful. The sister, Ellen, is played by Nicole Stoffman. She was not as successful. She only has 6 acting credits. The most probably well-known one is she played Stephanie Kay in 22 episodes of Degrassi High, which is like the Canadian Saved by the Bell.
Right. Only not funny, right? It's like serious.
I'm trying. I watched so little of it, I can't really remember. I thought it was more of a dramedy, though.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I never saw it. Yeah.
Oh no. I mean, I think you're right. Where it leaned a little bit more dramatic, but it still had some comedic elements. But,
like someone says,
anyways,
"I'm getting an abortion," and then everyone laughs.
Better get it now while it's still legal. Laugh track. Principal Whitcomb is played by Richard Farrell. Again, he didn't have a lot of acting credits. It is kind of weird. He only has 6 acting credits, and he's got like a few in '88, and then nothing until one in 1999, and then nothing till 2017, where he plays a voice in something called Monkey King Reloaded.
Wow, interesting.
It's like a short or something. Yeah, very, very weird. Even though he looks like he's 60 in this, he's still alive.
Yeah. Okay, good to know.
So I don't remember a character named Brad in this. I guess it must have been one of the background.
Maybe it's one of Yannick or Mark's friends.
Yeah, that's unnamed. So I won't go into that. We've got Birdie Baxter, who's played by Grant Cohn, which I think was again another background character. Carol Dixon, who's kind of like a aggressive love interest, is played by Cheryl Wilson. Again, nothing of note really on her resume.
Yeah, I think you hit all the important ones.
Yeah, and I do want to mention that Ronnie Garvin is in this. He's not in the IMDb credits, but he is he plays one of the wrestlers backstage that's got the most talking points. So the one that borrowed the book on the French Revolution.
Yeah, that was. Well, we'll get to that soon enough.
Yeah, we'll get to that. So, Steve, are you ready to review Learning the Ropes, which I believe may be the inspiration for Hannah Montana?
Yeah, let's dive right in.
All right. So we open at by the way, throughout this, I'll be referring to Randall as the Masked Maniac a lot of times.
And don't forget to, don't skip on that theme.
Okay. I won't skip on the theme. Actually, why don't we start off with that? Because I believe it starts off with the theme anyway.
Yes, it does. And
what did you think of the theme, Steven?
Well, the theme in fact, the music for the whole episode is done by one David Roberts. And this is the only thing that he's ever done in life.
Wonder why.
But, I mean, I think the theme is, like, perfect. If you're going to watch, like, a cheesy 80s sitcom, this is what you want your theme to sound like. It's, like, way better than the Small Wonder theme, which we both agreed sounded like weird, like 1950s barbershop or doo-wop or something. And this is just, like, basically the lyrics just say what the song is about, and then when it hits the chorus, it's learning the ropes, and it's just pretty good, I think. I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a good 80s sitcom theme. I agree. It's upbeat. It definitely has that like 80s semi-electronic sound.
The electric piano, and you've got it's just super cheesy and just totally works, I think.
Yep, and they've got the name of the show in the lyrics.
Yes, you gotta have that.
Mwah! So yeah, it's a pretty good theme, and then with clips from the show or whatever.
Clips of Flair. The Road Warriors were apparently on this. I want to watch that episode someday, but anyway, so we get through the theme and
then we open up on the Masked Maniac's home. Mark, his son, is watching some wrestling off of a tape that his friend let him borrow, and they show some of the matches, and we see that it's Masked Maniac wrestling, and the announcer, the commentator, is pretty funny. Like whoever they got to play the commentator, I don't know if this was like actually like an NWA announcer. I don't think it was. No. But he at one point he yells that the Masked Maniac is eating human flesh.
Yeah, like, all right, so let's talk about this right off the bat. Okay, so they're treating wrestling as if it's kayfabe, right? Like real for the most part.
Sometimes they do. Like it's kind of confusing, right? Because like okay, the announcer is yelling about how the Masked Maniac is consuming human flesh. Fine, that's like something you would expect a wrestling announcer, to do. But then, like later on in the show, when like his kids are talking about wrestling, they talk about it like it's real, and like the daughter even says something about like, oh, she doesn't want something to happen to her dad, where he like gets killed, basically.
Which is quite, it's quite founded, whether they're treating wrestling, whether it's real or not.
But then there's some backstage locker room scenes where the wrestlers are all just kind of hanging out, being buddy, and he even says, "These are my friends."
Right. So, I mean, they could have gone into more detail, like, but then that would make it look like a work if he was like, "Oh, these are my friends, like the jobbers," or this is the heel locker room, this is the face locker room. That's making it even worse. Right. Like as far as destroying the.
I guess the whole thing is that like. This is my headcanon for it. Wrestling is not real in the world of the TV show. However, the Masked Maniac lets his kids continue to think that it's real.
What an asshole.
Because fine, he didn't want his kids to find out that he wrestled, but fine, they found out. Well, he can't let them like kill kayfabe.
Right, of course, because
that's fake.
It's 1988, baby. Kayfabe's hot right now. Alive and well.
So yeah, it's really weird, and I wonder like how the NWA wanted it portrayed, and I don't know. I feel like they just kind of really the real answer is probably that they didn't really think about it,
right?
And they just did whatever they thought was funniest for whatever scene they were doing.
Because I noticed they treat it like wrestling as if it's real, sort of over the top, like you said, with the eating human flesh. And we're gonna get to the scene where Flair does his promo, which is
amazing,
but it's not a typical Ric Flair promo at all. You know what? Let's just get to it. So the kids are watching wrestling, right? And that's when they see Ric Flair's promo, right?
No, this happens way later.
Okay, all right. Well, then
I'll get to it because it's about like halfway through.
Right.
But we'll get to it. We got to build to it, baby. This is the shine, of course. Steve. All right. So, anyways, the Masked Maniac is wrestling. Like I said, the announcer says that he's eating human flesh, and then we see the Masked Maniac himself, Randall, come down the stairs. He tells Mark that he doesn't want his son to watch wrestling. Mark's like, why? And Randall says, I'm a dad. So I don't have to give a reason. Right. And then a laugh track appears because I guess that was a joke. And this is the kind of humor. It's very stereotypical, like 80s sitcom where it's like, why is this? Because of blah, blah, blah.
Right. It didn't annoy me. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I should wait till the end, but it didn't annoy me as much as like Small Wonder did.
Yeah, I agree. Because Small Wonder was definitely like setting up like I don't know, like convoluted punchlines. Well, I guess is
like
how I would describe
the
it. Like
plot of a lot of the plotting for that episode just didn't make any sense. Where at least this one,
right.
Aside from one big logical sort of plot hole, which I'll talk about when we get to it. I mean, it basically makes sense.
At least the jokes here, the attempted jokes, come up like as part of the conversation.
Yes.
And they don't feel as shoehorned in. So even if you don't find them funny, they don't feel like, why?
Right.
Why
it would be better if there was no laugh track. But whatever. It's 1988. Yeah. So what can you do?
Yeah, I think this would have played better as a dramedy without the laugh track. But anyways, then we have the daughter, Ellen, walk into the living room she walks in from the kitchen. And then the maniac, Randall's like, hey, are you ready? She says she just has to put on makeup and she'll be ready for school. There's some dumb, jokes between Ellen and her brother about how, like, she said, like, the dad says, oh, you don't need makeup. You're naturally beautiful. She says that, well, putting on makeup makes me look like Madonna. And then the brother, to give her a hard time, says, no, it makes you look like Michael Jackson. And he does like Michael Jackson real effeminate, like a super effeminate Michael Jackson impression.
Yeah.
And again, it's very low hanging fruit, but at least like it's organic and it does come off like something bickering siblings would like say to like poke at fun at each other. Sure,
I agree.
I didn't find it super funny, but like you said, it's pretty inoffensive stuff as far as like feeling not out of
It's place. Like the most you could hope for is to not be annoyed.
Yeah. So anyways, the Masked Maniac kind of tells them to go their separate ways and finish getting ready or whatever. The Mass Maniac preemptively tells Mark that he can't drive the car, and he tells him a few other things he can't do preemptively. Mark, who is kind of like played as a bit of a Zach Morris type of character.
100%.
Yeah, he's like supposed to be like at least he thinks of himself as cool and
well, I mean, he's a
charismatic.
wrestling fan, so of course he's cool.
Mark asks for more allowance money, and again, he just makes him like awful. He's like haggling the way Zach Morris would haggle, basically. He has some bad jokes, and Mark has this. The dad says no, he can't have it, and Mark has this it's supposed to be like a funny recurring joke about how his dad has a unique way of communicating. Did you think that was funny when he's like, yo, you need to work on your communication or something like that? And like, there's a laugh track. I was like, what?
And plus, like, I mean, no one talks to their dad like that. I mean, this is a sitcom, but yeah, no one. Have you ever said that to your dad?
And that bothered me.
Huh?
No. I just usually just hit him when.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, we've just entered a new world into Yahel's psyche. Please do.
I'm the real Mass Maniac. No, but. And it was kind of like off-putting at first, like as far as like it didn't feel like the way a dad and a character in a family sitcom, because this is not like a broken home where they have like some terrible relationship. So it felt like very out of place. However, I think it works because of something that they do later that I'll get to.
Oh, another just to touch real quick, they do have the one sort of 80s cliche where for whatever reason they just went ahead and didn't bother to have like a mom character.
Right. Well, they do explain the mom not being there later.
Right.
So basically Mark wants more money from his dad, and his dad says that he should get a job. This did actually kind of make me chuckle. Like the dad says, you need to get a job. Do you know what that spells? And Mark
Job,
like from the Bible.
Right. I would have, that sounds like something cheesy I would have said back then.
Yeah. Like it caught me so off guard. It was actually pretty funny. Anyways, Mark says that his dad's putting a lot of pressure on him because he has him going to this like private prep school with all these rich kids, and he shouldn't be the only. He's got to keep up with them, and he shouldn't be the only student that has a job there. And he's putting all this pressure on him. And then the dad, the Mass Maniac, says, in response to this, "It's my pleasure putting pressure on you," and then slaps his son in the ass.
That was so weird. Like that reminds me of Ace Ventura, where he's like, where Sean Young is like, "What do you know about pressure?" And he's like, "Well, I have kissed a man."
So yeah, just real weird, but whatever. Anyways, so the dad says that he what he does, he considers it tough love. Mark mentions something about like his dad being sarcastically talks about how his dad's an impoverished teacher. So that's how we find out that the dad's a teacher. So I wrote in my notes here. So apparently the Masked Maniac has a secret identity and job like Clark Kent.
Yeah.
Like, that's so strange to me, but I guess, and I didn't think about this until after I wrote the notes, that the Masked Maniac is a jobber.
Right.
He's not really like a top star, I guess. So I guess that's why he's not doing it as his regular job.
Right.
Still
I wonder if the season progresses, like, does he like get better opportunities? Does he stop being a jobber at some point? Does he ever get a chance to like go for the big belts? I wonder what happens.
Yeah, it would have been kind of cool if they had like several seasons and like it culminated. Like that would have been a great built-in idea for a series finale. It culminates in him winning the big one or something like that.
Well,
and then he quits the job at the school.
Yeah. Or he has to.
Oh man, should we relaunch? Should we reboot the show?
Well, I was going to ask you, like, has lately we've seen wrestling and other sort of shows, or I guess genres, if you will. I guess the one or show that comes to mind right now is Heels. Did you ever watch that?
No, but I thought you were going to say Young Rock.
Young Rock. Is that one about wrestling?
Yeah, it's literally they have like guys playing Triple H, guys playing Austin.
Like you've watched it? Is it any good?
I've seen clips. I mean, it looks all right. I mean,
yeah.
Well, when I say all right, I mean it looks not as bad as I thought, but also not good.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I just, yeah, those are the only ones that I mean, I've never watched a Young Rock, but Heels is pretty good. I don't know if they're going to do a second season, but it's pretty good.
They are.
Oh, good.
They were filming
Yeah.
it because I know like CM Punk missed something because he had to go film.
Man, everyone hates that guy now, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But anyways, the next scene we're in a classroom, specifically the Masked Maniacs classroom. But the weird thing is, and I don't know if this was like a scene got cut out from the copy we watched, but like when the scene starts out with laughter from the audience.
Yeah, that was weird. Yeah.
So I don't know. Someone's walking away when that's happening. So maybe like there's a missing scene or something. But either way, the principal walks in to the classroom along with his niece, who we find out is what was her name? Carol Dixon. Yeah. Although I don't think they mention her name in this episode, but which is odd. But anyways, principal walks in with his niece. The principal tells the maniac how he's been doing such a great job teaching, and he's really glad that his niece convinced him to give the maniac a job as a teacher. The principal says he's creating a role of vice principal, but that he's having a hard time deciding who to give it to because he's narrowed it down to either Randall, the masked maniac, or his own niece. His own niece. First, I wrote that she doesn't believe in nepotism and says to give it to Randall. Soon we'll find out why she really said that. Randall says that he accepts because he could use the extra money. The principal says that there is no extra money, which generates like another laugh
it's
track.
Just the pleasure of getting to work with him. Yeah,
he says the glory and honor of getting to work with him. Randall then says he passes, and the principal says, "Okay, there is money."
Look at him; he's acting just like a wrestling promoter.
Yeah, he says, "Okay, fine. There's a substantial raise. You get your own free parking spot." I can't remember, like an office. Oh, and a computer.
Yeah. Wow, a computer. How about a Vectrex even? Who knows?
Yeah. Throw in a ColecoVision and you got a deal. Okay, so he does accept. The niece then asks the masked maniac to go on lunch to recall their wild and intimate times together in college.
Right, but before we get into that, though, can we talk about the performance of the principal?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I thought it was pretty fun and hammy. Just, I mean, it's very similar to a while back when we covered the Saved by the Bell Christmas episode. That one manager. It's always, I guess, whenever.
Oh, it's exactly. Like that. Yeah.
Whenever you need sort of like a pseudo kind of villain, or I guess someone who's in a place of power in the 80s, they're always like almost borderline British, like upper crusts, like just over the top,
narcissistic.
Yeah, into themselves
for no reason.
Yeah, exactly.
He's basically like on a power trip as principal of this.
Right. Very Seymour Skinner almost.
Yeah. But to his credit, I mean, I guess this is like a more nuanced version of that kind of character because he does come in complimenting him, and what a good job he's done and yada yada. So I can't believe I'm saying this, but he's a pretty nuanced character, I suppose.
Just like Super Pro.
Yeah. So anyways, like I was saying, the niece asked the masked maniac to go on this like date to recall their wild and intimate times together in college. The masked maniac says that he remembers the wild and intimate times. He just doesn't remember the being together with her part. So basically, he's like, yeah, I was a real man whore, but not with you.
But I think that's implying that she, too, was a woman whore.
No, because then she says, oh, sorry, that was just my imagination running wild. So basically, she had been fantasizing.
Oh, all right.
So
they're setting it up. Like, she's obviously been pining for him. But yeah, he's
since college. Yeah, they literally say that. Like it's the next dialogue.
Yeah, basically. I mean, but he's, been hanging out with Ric Flair and Jake the Snake Roberts doing blow and having giant rat orgies.
This is pre-blow because he says that the niece says that thing about her imagination, and she even then says, I don't know if you caught this. She says to him, "Imagine you're in Lover's Lane in your car, and the police come up to you to bang on your window to knock off the racket and tell you to stop, but it's just you alone. So she was masturbating furiously, like at Lover's Lane. So she was thinking about him, I guess, and then going to Lover's Lane and masturbating loudly. Like, why not just do it at home? Like,
I mean, she just wanted to be there at Lover's Lane because it would help put her more into the mood. Because it's like, well,
Yeah.
I'm in the right space. It's just I'm missing my man, but luckily I have my hand here. And
yeah. So so that is one definite positive I've got to say about this episode, and hopefully the whole show's like this. Like they really, they'll just imply some stuff. They won't outright say it, but
Right.
like once you stop and think about it, you're like, wait a minute, I see what you're saying here. And it's always, well, not always, but oftentimes something absurd, which I appreciate. Then the maniac reminds her that he was with a girl at the time. He was dating a girl who would eventually become his wife and the mother of his kids. And then she says, the niece says, well, where is she now? She's not here. And he's like, you know very well that she's in England studying, and they don't establish in this episode, but it's his ex-wife now.
Right.
But since you don't know that in this episode, it seems like the niece is just saying like she wants to have an affair with him, because then she goes, oh yeah, well, I'm here now.
Right. Yeah. It's all very almost Saved by the Bell-ish, except for the roles would be reversed.
I would describe this as Silk Stockings Jr.
I'm so glad you were able to use that again. Yeah. So, wow.
But right, it's like sexual. There's a lot of innuendo. It's not like too in your face, but I can see like a kid watching this. Maybe if you're a little kid, it'll go over your head. But if you're an adult, you get what they're going.
Right, but I wonder. I mean, because I could never. Again, the information on this show was quite sparse. Like, I wonder if this was made for like prime time, like 8 p.m., 9 p.m., like on a Thursday night or something, like must-see TV Canadian television, or if it was meant to be shown like Saturday morning right after Small Wonder. I can't hear you, buddy.
I was on mute. I know the answer to that question, Steve, because if you watch this episode all the way to the end of the credits, like the announcer says something like, hey, kids, stick around for DJ Yada Yada coming up next.
You're right. Oh, my God. So, wow. So they're dumb. I mean, but at the same time, this could have been recorded off of American television, where they could have possibly decided that it was for kids, which is still messed up. So I guess we'll never really know.
Yeah, well, I mean, most, if not all of those stations that we saw. No, actually, some of these are Canadian, but because there's like Winnipeg in here, but most of these are American cities that it was syndicated in. So, anyways, moving right along, I just thought it was hilarious that the first episode of this family-friendly sitcom features an attempt to goad the mass maniac into having an extramarital affair, because as far as we know, the implication here is that he's still with her. She's just studying abroad.
That's wrestle life, baby. When you're
So she's
when you're in WO, the rats just can't stay off you.
Yeah, and the last thing, one of the last things that the niece says is that, well, she's here. The niece, excuse me. Let me just use her character's name, because this is getting obnoxious. Carol tells the masked maniac, well, I'm here studying you now, and I'm asking for a makeup exam.
Yes.
Whoa. Man,
I feel like we've just been bombarded by nothing but like puns in the last like hour or two. Then the best part is that the most overt and obvious puns have yet to come.
To come.
Yeah,
huh?
There you go. Hey, it's good because it's sort of, I don't know, there was, at least it shows that she's a strong woman who knows what she wants. For better or worse.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I had to deal with a cat situation.
Yeah, I was gonna try to. Man, you just have a whole freaking zoo over there.
I got a zoo here, Steve.
Oh, I gotta watch out. My echidna is like fighting with the hedgehog. Oh my God.
Yeah. Okay, so Anyways, now we're like at another part of the school. We see Ellen talking to one of her friends by the lockers. The Ellen's friend, who I don't think we find out her name, but I think in the credits it said Beth.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, she complains to Ellen that her mom won't let her get a fourth earring in her right ear.
Right.
Okay. Then the audience laughs. Okay, sure.
Yeah, piercing jokes. That's funny.
Yeah, then Mark and another guy named Kevin walk by. Ellen's friend says that she wants to lock lips with Mark. Because this is a very horny show, Steve.
This is the 80s, man. Everyone was just lip locking everyone.
What is going on in Canada, man? Yeah. Anyways, so Ellen's friend walks up to Mark and says that, and I quote, "I'm thinking of getting another hole in my ear." Mark then looks at her and says, "Go for it." Which for some reason makes her upset.
Right.
Storms off.
I think it's just supposed to show that he's cavalier and doesn't care. I think
he doesn't care.
Like what she wanted was, ooh, really? I think that would like add to your, I don't know, whatever, femininity or something.
Yeah.
But
maybe she, or I'll poke a hole in you with my Canadian Labatt can. my love.
Wow. No, I was like, she wanted her hole filled, is what she wants to say. But isn't it funny that
did you think it was weird that like, and I thought maybe American audiences wouldn't really be able to like get this when her friend says you're a real Rick Moranis?
Yeah, I don't even think he.
She doesn't say that, Steve. I just know Rick Moranis is Canadian.
Wow, you trying to pull a fast one on me?
You're like, oh shit!
I was about to say, yeah, like I think that one escaped me, but I was gonna draw another comparison to Small Wonder, where remember there's a like boy crazy girl in that show as well, like his neighbor.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I just think I guess it was just a sort of cliche or a trope at the time.
Yeah, true. Because even on Family Matters, there was like that one girl that was Vivian, I think was her name, that was really into Urkel.
Well, yeah, but they didn't add her until like many seasons later.
Yeah. But I mean, it just goes to speak that like, yeah,
right,
it was
right
thing. And wasn't like Kimmy Gibbler from Full House really into?
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Somebody. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyways, so next we're back at the I wrote in my note here. We're back at the Maniac Mansion.
Nice.
So we're back at the Masked Maniac's house where Mark and Kevin are watching a match between Ric Flair and the Masked Maniac. Kevin makes some dumb jokes saying that he heard like the Masked Maniac eats puppies for lunch.
Right.
And Mark replies that he switched to kittens because they're easier to digest.
Oh God, no, that's a bad joke, but whatever.
Yeah, and another laugh track appears. Mark keeps yelling for Ric Flair to kill him. There's a lot of like, if you took a shot, Steve, every time you heard kill him or murder.
See, and that's like, that goes back to our, previous discussion on how wrestling is being treated. Like, cause to me, it seemed like the NWA, treated wrestling like it's a real sport. There's not a lot. I mean, obviously until, NWO came and they started having ridiculous Halloween Havoc matches and stuff. Like, when did and we're gonna see from Flair's like promo here, it just seems like maybe it's amped up a bit to where people are killing and murdering people.
It's being treated like UFC when it first came out, like a blood sport.
Yeah, like it's something that's a very taboo or that someone could actually die from. Yeah. I know, which is just kind of weird.
Right. Anyways, Mark keeps yelling for him to kill him. Ellen walks in and she kind of makes fun of the boys for watching wrestling. Then we get a promo from Ric Flair. So for those that know, promo is like an interview with a wrestler. And during the interview, when Ric Flair is being interviewed, he says that killing is my life.
Yeah, murder is my life.
Murder is my life.
Yeah.
And then he also says that torture is my life.
See, that's like that's so weird because it's just like, is that something they told him to say? Because that's like not a standard Flair like promo at all.
I think that they told Flair, "Hey, we want you to like say something that like sounds like you're like vile, like you're like this evil guy. And we just want you to end it with this punchline." Right. And I think that's what happened, because then the punchline is because he talks about his life. My life's all about murder, brutal murder. Yeah. Torture is my life, causing agony.
It seemed like a joke promo also, because
And then the interviewer says, "Ric Flair, when people look back on your career 8 years later, who knows? Who knew he'd be wrestling for like another 40 more years?
Right.
When people look back at your career 8 years later, what do you want them to say?" And Ric Flair looks dead in the camera, and with a very serious summer voice says, "I hope people look back and look back at me in my career and say that I brought I helped to improve their quality of life."
But surely they didn't do that on purpose, though.
Yeah, dude. Oh, this has to be on purpose. I think they told him, "Hey, this is good. We want you to say, go off. You do a wrestling promo as say the most vile, heinous thing you could think of as a bad guy wrestler, and end it with that you hope people look back at your career and say you improve the quality of life." I think it was 100%.
Yeah, all right. Maybe I could see it.
Oh, I think so, man. Because just think about some of the other kind of absurd stuff already.
Right, and then and then we get the in the locker room at the end with him loaning a book to someone. Okay, all right, you convinced me.
Yeah. Anyways, either way, it cracked me up.
Oh yeah, well, I died.
It's supposed to be funny because there is laugh track during this, so it's supposed to be funny.
All right.
Mm-hmm. The laugh track saves the show for once. So, anyways, now we're in the wrestling locker room backstage. Looks like Rick Garvin is back there, who's a real wrestler. He asked the Masked Maniac if he's okay. So this is what I was saying earlier, because the Masked Maniac walks into the locker room, and Masked Maniac and Rick Garvin's like, "Hey, are you okay?"
Wait, don't you mean Ronnie Garvin?
Ronnie Garvin, yeah, sorry. Thank you. And anyways, Masked Maniac's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And then Ronnie Garvin says, gives him some insight. He thanks him for letting him borrow a book on the French Revolution. Mm-hmm. He gives some deep insight into what he gleaned from the book.
Right.
And it was so funny. It was just unexpected and stupid. It was just so stupid.
Right. It's that old tired sort of chestnut where the person who's a dumb jock says something that's deep and insightful, and everyone's like, "Whoa!"
Right, he's not just a dumb jock.
Right, right.
And when this scene happened, I thought, "Oh God, is the whole thing going to be that he is wrestling just to get these wrestlers out of the pro wrestling lifestyle and educate them because he loves teaching so much?"
Right.
Is this his ministry, for lack of a better word?
Right. Well, I'm glad they didn't do that route. That would have been stupid.
Yeah, me too. But I should mention though, when the Masked Maniac walks into the locker room, he's wearing the mask. Mm-hmm. He's wearing the mask the whole time, and it's after Ronnie Garvin says, "Oh, this is what I gleaned from the book. Thank you for letting me borrow it." Then the Masked Maniac takes off his mask, and here's where we, the audience, find out, oh, this is actually Randall the whole time, and the audience goes,
"Ooh!" We couldn't figure it out. Yeah, it was hilarious.
Yeah. So, anyways, next scene is we're back at the Masked Maniac mansion. Mm-hmm. Ellen asks for $2 for lunch. Mm-hmm. What a time to be alive.
I know, right? She could have gotten 2 trays for that.
Yeah. Anyways, Mark walks in. He asks his dad if he's seen his tennis racket. Masked Maniac says that he hasn't seen it. They have some back and forth about Masked Maniac is like, "Well, you mean my tennis racket? Because I bought it." Just typical 80s sitcom stuff. Anyways, Masked Maniac is trying to get Mark to get ready to go, but Mark's like, "I'm actually going to ride with Kevin's dad." So Mark leaves, the Masked Maniac leaves, and Mark is looking around the house for the tennis racket. And instead, what does he find, Steve?
He finds the mask of the Masked Maniac in his closet.
Right. He even puts it on. He realizes, whose mask it is, and he's kind of talks to himself.
Can you imagine how sweaty and disgusting that mask would be?
Disgusting. Oh, God. Yeah, I can only imagine. So he puts it on, and he's like, "Wait a minute. My dad was out the night of the Masked Maniac's last match. Wait, he's been going out a lot during the same times that the Masked Maniac wrestles."
It was
so he puts together
Super Pro style exposition. Yeah.
Yeah. So he puts together that his dad is a mass maniac.
So let me just stop you right there, Yahel, because this is where like my logic sort of kicks in. Because up until now, everything I would say was on the up and up for the most part, and they could have addressed this pretty easily, but they never did. Like, why only now did they stumble across this secret? I mean, if he's been wrestling for like years, I mean, surely they would have.
We don't know how long he's been wrestling.
I get, but he never says that he never really says when. But it just seems like it's just. I mean, he never poked around in that closet before. You get what I'm saying?
My guess is that it's like a recent development.
Ah, I see.
Because we don't know like how long he's been wrestling.
It's a good, but I mean,
if he's a jobber, that would kind of make me think that he's probably not been doing it very long.
Well, but I mean, Bubba says that you have to spend like 6 years at the Team 3D Academy before you can go free.
You can't become a professional wrestler until you have given me $7,000 over the course of 5.5 years.
Right, exactly. But yeah, I mean, I guess
that's how Ric Flair did it. Wait, Bubba, that doesn't make sense.
Right. I mean, I guess I just feel like they would have figured it out a lot sooner. The kids would have. Right.
But again, I don't think that like this has been going on for a long time because, for example, they do say earlier that like he just started teaching at this school and just started going. The kids just started going there. So this all seems like a fairly new thing.
Okay. All right. I can buy that. All right. Last question. Okay. Why?
I can't believe I'm defending learning the ropes.
So well, no, I don't want to, yeah, let's just move forward and then I'll ask that question then.
Okay. So anyways, either way, Mark figures it out. I do agree with you. Like they could have definitely done a little bit more explaining of the timeline. The only other reason why maybe I can think like they didn't figure it out is the kids are supposed to be young. So maybe if he was doing it for years, it was easier to hide.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. But yeah. Anyway.
From his 32-year-old son that's in 9th grade.
Right.
Because he doesn't drive yet, right? So he is supposed to be like in 8th or 9th grade, I guess.
Yep.
Anyways, we cut back to the school, and 2 boys are making fun of the beating that the mass maniac took from Ric Flair. Mark walks up mid-conversation and says something. He starts basically defending the mass maniac.
Yeah,
he says
he's offended. Yes.
Yeah, he's like, oh well, you can't win them all.
Right.
He says stuff like that. One of the kids makes a joke that they probably make the mass maniac wear a mask because he's so ugly.
Right.
And then Mark really starts to stick up for the mass maniac and gives one of the boys the lightest shove possible.
Right.
And then, just as that happens, the principal walks up, grabs Mark by the shirt, and ironically pulls Mark much harder than he shoved the kid.
Right.
And is like, oh, you're fighting, yada, yada. The principal says to Mark, I'm sure your father will be thrilled to know that you're a thug, a hood.
But think of the dramatic irony there. It's like, of course his father would be okay with it because he's a wrestler.
But then he's not, because the principal brings Mark to the mass maniac's classroom. Principal says that Mark was fighting, even though all he did was give
the lightest shove. Yeah, I know. That's.
But then the mass maniac, he asks Mark, "Is it true that you were fighting?" To which Mark says, "Yes."
I guess they didn't want to have any choreography for that scene.
I guess this explains in a weird way, Steve, if you think about it, why they act like the mass maniac is eating people's flesh when he's really not. Because here, if a light shove equates to a fight, then I guess like an eye rake equates you're consuming somebody's flesh. You know what I mean? Like,
wow, yeah.
Just,
I mean, everybody is so nice in Canada that the slightest bit of,
the slightest indiscretion is
considered just aggression.
Assault.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, so, the principal says, oh, this is probably very uncomfortable for you, Randall. I can take care of disciplining your son for you.
Oh yeah, that was
weird.
Drew up some horrible images in my head. And,
I was like, oh.
Thank God, like Dad or Randall, the mass maniac, was there, or not Randall, but thank God Mass Maniac was there to be
Yeah.
like, no, I'll take care of it.
Well, that is Randall. That's his real name.
Well, what was the son's name? I thought the son was Randall.
Mark.
Oh yeah, right, of course, because he's a big Mark. Exactly. Yeah.
For wrestling, which that has to be on purpose. So
and the
I'll give him
daughter's
credit for
name
that.
is
That's pretty funny.
Rat. I don't know.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
So, anyways, Randall says, I'll talk to my son about this in private. So, principal leaves. Mark explains what happened. And Maniac says, hey, that's not how we handle things. And then Mark says, oh, you've never pushed anyone?
Right.
They kind of have a little back and forth about that.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that, like, Randall is like, what are you getting at, kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So Mark tells him that he found the Masked Maniac mask. Randall claims that. Then Randall starts making excuses. He's like, oh no, I have that mask because I wore it during Halloween. But
he's like, and then his son is like, oh no, you didn't. We just handed out candy the whole time, or something like that. And then Randall's like, would you believe Easter or something like that?
Yeah, he's like, I wore it on Easter.
Yeah.
He's like, what? No.
That is so stupid that it made me laugh.
Yeah. Then the Maniac says that he's sorry that he had to find out this way.
Right. Yeah. It's like he just walked in on his dad, who was claiming to be straight like all of his life, with another man or something.
I would say he's acting more like he just found out that his dad's a member of the Outlaws, the biker gang, notorious for like being murderers.
Oh, well, that's oddly specific, but sure. Yeah.
Well, I one of my best friends growing up, his dad was a member of the Outlaws.
Wow. And we're just learning all kinds of things about you on this episode.
He was nice as hell. I would not mess with him, though.
Right.
Even to this day, I would not mess with
Mm-hmm.
him. Anyways, in fact, I need you to delete that from the podcast.
Sure, buddy.
So Maniac is like, hey, I'm sorry you had to find out this way. But Mark says that he thinks it's cool, as he would. He's a wrestling fan.
It's Mark.
Maniac tells his son, hey, no one can find out about it, especially your sister Ellen. Mark tries to convince him to let some girls know so that he can impress them.
Mm-hmm.
But Maniac says no, because people that moonlight as wrestlers, they get fired from the real jobs if they're discovered. And he wants to teach.
See, that's very oh, wait, no. No, yeah, you're right. Okay, continue.
Yeah. So, Mark is like, how did you... And I'm glad that they did this.
Mm-hmm.
Mark says, how did you even get into this?
Right.
Because I was wondering that too.
Yeah.
And he says that basically a guy at the gym asked him if he wanted to do it to make some extra money to fill in for someone who...
Wait, let me fill in the gaps here. I was buying steroids from a guy at the gym when
he said, I'll only keep selling you these steroids if you become a jobber.
And that man was Vince McMahon.
That's right. So anyways, he says this guy offered him some extra money to do it. And the dad says, when I started out doing it, because it was fun. It was kind of like for the kicks. But more importantly, it became a way to save money for college for you and your sister.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of, I like that they have the dad have some wholesome motivations for maiming people.
And here is my sort of second, I guess, little plot hole or something, if you will. It's like, it looks like he works at a pretty nice, private school. You think that he doesn't get paid enough there?
Well, yeah, he works at a nice private school, but he's still now he's the vice principal. But you have to assume that his kids are.
And plus, doesn't Canada have great, sort of socialized welfare and stuff?
Yeah, but he probably wants to send him to an Ivy League school or something like that, because we're probably teaching at this prep school so that his kids can be there for free.
Right.
And later we find out when there's a scene coming up where the daughter is asking him for money for a dress, and he's like, "Oh, I'll have some money coming in next week. I can give it to you then." So it's not like he's flush with cash.
Yeah. All right. I mean, I'm just nitpicking. I mean, yeah, that was basically my sort of.
So they do kind of explain it. But I get where you're coming from. Anyway, so next we're at the family kitchen table, and there's some typical family sitcom banter. And actually, this is where Ellen says that she wants money for a dress for homecoming or something. And Mark is making a bunch of wrestling puns.
Oh God, this was so bad. It was awesome.
Yeah, he's very sarcastically saying things like, "Oh, Ellen, I don't know. Don't you see the way that Dad has to wrestle with the bills each month?
So bad.
I don't want to see him get pinned into a bad financial situation." And it shouldn't work, but the guy playing Mark really goes for the hamminess of it.
He does.
And we haven't really talked about the acting capability of Lyle, the guy that plays the Masked Maniac, but he's actually pretty good.
Very charismatic, very likable.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, just looking at sort of the pictures of this or something. I mean, it's really hard to tell. I mean, it's like, oh man, this is gonna, what way they're gonna go. Is he gonna be? I thought maybe they'd make him some sort of like hyper aggressive asshole or something, but no, he's very likable, and very charismatic.
Yeah. He makes for a really good TV dad, for like an 80s TV dad.
100%.
So anyways, like I said earlier, the dad's like, yeah, next week I'll be able to give it to you. But as like, Mark and the dad, like keep kind of going back and forth with the dad's like kind of trying to shut Mark up. It basically says, Ellen, you got to go. Mark and I need to have a private one-on-one discussion. Ellen wants to know what's going on, but he's like, nope, father-son talk. And it's interesting here how like now that you would think like Mark is going to try to use the knowledge of his dad's like, secret life as a way to blackmail him into giving him like allowance money and this and that.
That's what Zach Morris would do.
Right. But instead, he actually starts to become more respectful of his dad because he's such a mark and he's like, thinks it's cool. And he's more intimidated by his dad now that it actually makes him respectful, which is why I don't have a problem with him being an ass to his dad earlier. Because it helps to like give that contrast now.
It's a character arc, baby. It's a character arc.
Yeah, like,
and
I'm shocked.
For you dads who don't have the respect of your sons and daughters, become a pro wrestler. It's that simple.
Yeah, lie about it or hide it, but leave a mask around so they find it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Anyways, so sorry, I lost my spot here. So anyways, the dad basically intimidates Mark into doing the dishes after he had tried to get out of it.
There you go.
Yeah. So next, it's later in the evening. We're still at the Maniac Mansion. Ellen asks Mark where Dad went to. Dad's not there. Mark tries to avoid telling her, and then Ellen tries to get it out of him by blackmailing him. And she's basically just threatening to reveal a bunch of dumb stuff to his friends.
Right.
Like, oh, I'll tell them about the time I don't even remember what it was.
Oh, I got one where he taped hair to his chest or something.
No. That's the one that's successful.
Oh, okay.
But there were like 2 or 3 things before that. Like she said something about like, oh, what about these love notes you wrote to so-and-so? And he's like, oh, no one will believe it. And she says a couple other things like that. But yeah, the last one that gets him, because he's like walking away from her going up the stairs. And then she says, well, I'll tell everybody about how you like glue hair to your chest.
Right. And here's another sort of, why is she only suspicious now about like Dad leaving? We can only assume he's been constantly, leaving to go train or do do matches.
Well, remember though, Steve, in the last scene, like she becomes suspicious and she says, what's going on with like her and her
oh, right, because they're having their little argument. Okay. All right.
She suspects something is up.
The writing is just too tight on learning the ropes.
It's surprisingly tight, at least this episode. Anyways, so next scene, we're at the wrestling matches, and we get a shot of the crowd where we see Mark and Ellen are walking in, and they're sitting down to watch the wrestling matches. And I guess Ellen has been told by Mark that her dad's a masked maniac, and she sees him wrestling, and she's just mortified.
Yeah, she does the old covering her face routine. It's like,
yeah.
There's so many worse things you can be in the world than a professional wrestler, but whatever.
I mean, but the weird thing, it's again, like, I think my biggest problem, plot hole wise, is like they're very inconsistent with how they treat wrestling. Is it real?
Right.
Guys getting like, is there? Because if the thing is like, okay, if it was this barbaric, why isn't her dad coming home with like bruises and like, and so that's my one big plot hole for this show. But anyways, so after she watches the matches, the next scene is we're kind of backstage just outside the locker rooms, and Ellen is kind of being standoffish, and the masked maniac comes out of the locker room to talk to her. Ellen says that to her dad that he maims people.
Yeah, maybe that's just like the writers and their sort of not understanding of wrestling. I don't know. We've already talked about it.
I mean, the kids think it's real.
Right.
Like, so like Mark acts like it's real. And she's the younger sister, so you would think she also thinks it's like real and barbaric. So I guess to them it's real, but they just should have done a better job of establishing that to the adults it's not real, but to the kids it is.
So when they go backstage, which we're pretty much there now, is that basically sort of their version of kind of lifting the veil? Say, hey, these are my friends.
So.
They're not so bad. Like, and it's very,
I guess so.
It's still very vague, but
like you said, I mean, I think you were right that this is probably supposed to be like the baby face locker room. It's like the good guy locker room. For those that don't know, back in the 80s, probably through the early 90s, I would think, there were always like at big shows like for WWE or NWA, there were two sets of locker rooms. One where the good guys were in, one where the bad guys were in. This was so that like if a fan or whatever was wandering around backstage, they wouldn't accidentally see them like good guys and bad guys like mingling and being friends.
Right.
Anyways, so Mass Maniac apologizes to Ellen for not telling her. And Ellen says that I don't want to wake up one morning to find out that I don't have a father anymore either. Wow. Which is the only clue that we have that the mother's like not involved.
Right.
Mass Maniac replies a really weird reply. He says that they have to get on with their lives. So I guess he meaning that like, hey, this is a thing that's happening. I'm gonna keep wrestling.
This is how it's gonna be. It's like, it's like I'm a wrestler. Damn it! If you can't accept me, then too bad.
So Ellen kind of begrudgingly accepts the situation, and she jokes very sarcastically that she quips, "This is turning out to be a very unhappy childhood."
Yeah, that's kind of a funny line.
Yeah, it kind of was funny, and her delivery was good.
Yeah.
So then we go into the same wrestling locker room where we were at earlier with Ronnie Garvin, and we see like Ronnie Garvin is lifting Mark up over his head like in a military press position, and in walks in Mass Maniac and Ellen, and the other wrestlers meet the kids, and they talk about how they're the wrestlers like talk about how great their dad is, how Ronnie Garvin talks about how he's helping him with his education, and another wrestler named Cheetah says, yeah, he's helping me write a book about like my life experience, and you can see like Ellen is like, oh, I didn't expect you to be real people, kind of a thing.
Right, because all wrestlers are just blood eating slime, right?
Yeah. So I do appreciate that the show doesn't like make a mockery of wrestling or wrestlers. It actually treats the industry like pretty seriously.
Well, I mean, they take wrestling pretty serious up in Canada. I mean, even in the...
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah. That's it. I hadn't even thought about that. I'm sure that, if this was America, the wrestlers and wrestling would have been the butt of jokes.
Right. They would basically be Bonesaw from Spider-Man 1.
Yep. So anyways, Mass Maniac tells the kids, hey, these are my friends, yada, yada. You have to keep it a secret that I'm a wrestler. This is like more towards Ellen. And Ellen says, yeah, right. Like, I want everyone to know about this. And then they kind of hug, and then the show ends. And
perfect.
That was quite a ride.
Yeah, perfect sort of 80s sitcom ending, I'd say.
Yeah. That is the first episode, not the pilot episode. I did find the unaired pilot, which I'm glad we didn't watch it because I watched like about 10 minutes of it, and literally the first 10 minutes is like, it opens up with like a bunch of wrestlers sitting at the Mass Maniac kitchen table watching wrestling on a little TV, like watching their own matches.
Huh. That's weird.
But then they show like 8 minutes of a match. And then they cut back to the wrestlers. Like I was like, what is this? So very weird.
That is weird.
Pilot.
Well, shall we render our verdict about learning the ropes?
Let's do it.
All right.
Remember, rated man with the question.
All right, London Vice. Yahel. Should learning the ropes, the first wrestling sitcom, be remembered for all of pro wrestling history, or should it be choked out in the center of the ring, never to wrestle again?
Wow. I will say when based off the clip that we saw on TikTok, that got us, that even, informed us that this thing existed. In the beginning of the show, the theme song, even though it's good for like, it's exactly the kind of theme song you would expect and should have in your 80s family sitcom, it made me think this was not going to be good at all. I was not going to enjoy any of it, not even ironically. So I was pleasantly surprised. We've talked about, the writing being surprisingly tight. You get some like decent character arcs here. The kids put in like pretty good performances. Probably helps that they're not kids.
Right. Right.
Like after the, when they yell cut, like Ellen and Mark are sharing a cigarette and a bottle of whiskey, in between takes.
Yeah, Ellen is like, yeah, I fucked a couple guys last night.
Yeah. I gave him the old clam slam. Anyways, I would say I keep this. I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I thought it would. It almost feels like these writers like wrote like a show initially that maybe they wanted it geared towards more of an adult audience, and then maybe a producer or somebody was like, yeah, well, if we're gonna sell this, we got to make it like more family oriented, and then it was kind of maybe like dumbed down a little bit. But because there's some really good stuff in here, so I say keep it. What do you say?
Yeah, I was really surprised. I thought it was going to be another sort of small wonder situation.
Me too.
Where it was just going to be like unbearably like annoying and stupid. But yeah, the writing was surprisingly tight. If you're, I mean, I was already a fan of like WCW and the NWA, so actually having those wrestlers in there, always been a big Ric Flair fan, so just seeing him pop up on this show that I had never heard of was pretty interesting. And just the fact that this show has gone under our radar like all this time was just kind of amazing. It was almost like I don't know. This almost felt like, I mean, I wouldn't say it's like this up to date, but like somebody made a show that was like, throwback, that we missed.
Yeah.
And yeah, like really, really ended up enjoying it. Nobody was really too annoying. Like the characters had enough depth. I mean, they weren't like the deepest people ever written or anything, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. Loved the theme. And yeah, so I'm going to say this should be remembered. And I would say, if maybe you're not a fan of maybe 80s sitcom or even NWA, like you get a couple of friends and some beers or other sort of mind-altering substances, and this could be a really good time.
Yeah, I totally agree. And again, Lyle is a surprisingly like good lead.
Yep, he was great.
It's like he's super charismatic. In fact, he's got some other films under his IMDb that we should probably look into watching.
Neon City, baby.
Just because, yeah, like I would watch anything that he plays like a prominent role in. Because yeah, the guy is fun to watch.
All right, so it's gonna be remembered.
In accordance to Obscurity Now, the most important streaming YouTube podcast in all of the internet, you shall be remembered. Yes. Good show. Good show.
Yeah, I had a feeling you were going to like this. I was going to be really surprised if you didn't. But
yeah, it was really, really fun. Yeah, I like the more I watched it, because I don't think I even wanted to like it at first, because I was like so sure it was gonna be bad, and then I was like, after a few minutes, I'm like, man, this is kind of dumb fun.
Right. I mean, it definitely ticked off the boxes for us. You got the wrestling, you got the sort of 80s sitcom cheese factor. I mean, and it wasn't even annoying. So, I mean, where can you go wrong?
Yeah, we should probably watch this movie called Destroyer. Where like Lyle is the lead character. It looks like it's like a horror movie.
Oh, nice.
And the tagline is, "They never dreamed he'd become the perfect killing machine." So it'd be fun to see like the his range. Can he now be? Can he go from loving, charismatic, fun, tough but caring father to the perfect killing machine?
That movie sounds very familiar too. But yeah, we should.
Well, perhaps the other tagline will jog your memory, Steve. 3,000 volts couldn't kill him. It just gave him a buzz.
I've seen it. Yep, it's awesome. I've seen it. But yeah, well, audience, let us know what you think about learning the ropes. Did we make the right choice? Of course, it's too late. We already made the right one. So Anyway, we will see you next Sunday as we continue to talk about something, and of course, more obscure media only on Obscurity Now. We will see you next week.
You've been enjoying Obscurity Now, a podcast that's recorded live to tape and streamed to Twitch and YouTube. Subscribe so you never miss an episode or hilarious quip. Take us with you by following the download links provided in the show notes to wherever you get podcasts. And take notice of our various social media links if that's what you're into. I'm not here to judge. And make sure you join us live next week at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific as we continue to discuss more obscure media only on Obscurity Now.